Hello, I'm Crafty Patti, and I'm so glad you've come back. You've obviously watched part one, at least I hope you have. If you haven't, it will tell you everything you need to know to get ready for this process of punch needling. The different types of fabric, how to build a frame, types of wool, types of punch needles. I talk about it all in part one. Now, here's all the wool. Let's get started and let's start punching. Now, in case you haven't watched part one, I did draw out a rough design here of basically a beach scene, waters, mountain, sun. And that's my general idea. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put in the waves. There's always some waves crashing up on the beach. So this will obviously be sand color, waves, ocean colors, browns possibly for the mountains, and obviously blue and some yellow or orange for the sun. So let's get started on this. I just thought I'd show you. This is 1 yard of yarn. I'm going to show you how far you can get with 1 yard of yarn. So there you go. 1 yard of yarn will give you 6.5 inches or about 16.5 centimeters. First thing, choose your color, and you're going to be wanting to pull out quite a bit from the center of your ball of yarn because you don't want any tightness pulling on your punch needle. So you want quite a bit ready to go. I want my waves just slightly higher than the sand because waves are higher than the sand. So I'm coming in to start with a number 8, Oxford. There it is there, number 8. If you don't have an 8, use a 10. And if you don't have that, then use probably your second setting on your adjustable. And so for threading, think about the butt end of the needle up to the ball of yarn. That's where it's coming off of, so that's the way you can always think of it. And the end is always at the eye of the needle. So let's put this into the channel. So now we're just going through this eye of the needle. So let's just pop that through the eye. And what I like to do is just go back and forth until I know it's sitting really nicely, going and sliding smoothly through the channel. When you're using your punch needle, think of it as this yarn trailing behind, and the point of the needle is always going forward, and the shaft is always facing you, facing up. And we're working in this direction. For the very first punch, we've got a little bit of a tail here. The very first one, you're going to go down. This isn't a really thick yarn, so I'm going to go probably every second hole. I think you can see on camera okay. Here's my first one, and I'm going to just lift it up, and don't lift too high. You've got to keep this point of your needle so you can barely just scraping across, and you're going to go down again into the next one. You're punching so the wood hits on the cloth every time. Now I like to press my finger here just to give it a bit of security for when it's coming up, and again down and down. So you can see what it's doing. Now this might be a little bit hard because I've got white on the tan color, but hopefully you can see that. And that's about the depth of stitches I'm making, about 1/4 inch, I guess. And I'm going to follow along this line. And I'm holding the tool like a pencil. The Oxfords have got a really nice grip on here, so it's really natural just to hold right there and lifting up. And don't lift too high, because if you do, what's going to happen? That stitch is going to come right out again. And every time I change direction or I'm working up on a little curve or anything like this, like right here, I'm turning it so down in here, I'm turning it so this is pointing in the direction I want to go. So now I'm going up this way and I'm going to press up into here. I'm turning it this direction so I can see my line here, so I know I'm going this way, and move in that direction. Again, turning and finish your line. And you can go a lot faster with this, but I'm going slow for the sake of the video so you know what to do. And here's my last stitch that I'm going to hit onto my line here. Now, if you can work with left and right hands, then that's wonderful, because then all you have to do is, I was doing this left-handed because I am left-handed, and now I want to come back this way. So if I was to turn this around this way, I could just stay where I am without having to move the frame or anything, and keep going and do my second row. Now, if that is awkward for you, then turn your frame around and work with your one hand. So then I would just have to turn this around and as you can see, that's taking some time to do that, but if that's more comfortable for you, then definitely do it. Now I'm punching fairly close to this row here because this isn't a real bulky yarn or anything, it's just a 4. And what I'm doing is, here's my stitch here, now here's this one, goes from here to here. So I'm going to place my needle right in the middle of that stitch, and that's what I meant by the bricklaying. So if you do that, you're going to get better coverage on your final piece of artwork. Now I've got a little bit of a curve here, so I'm going to put one extra stitch in here, and then I'm going to keep going, and then we'll carry on. Now remember that this is the wrong side of your work. The right side is on the other side because that's the loops. And here I'm turning, so I'm making sure we're turning in that direction. And I don't know if you can hear on camera, but I can't hear this punch needle barely going into the cloth. It's going in so smoothly, and that's why I do like these Oxford punch needles. So I think you got probably the idea without me having to yatter on. I'll just let you watch a little bit here. And again, you can see every time it's important that you get down right to the bottom of your punch needle. That's what's going to make the even loops on the other side. Now, I'm going to show you something. Look at my yarn. See how it's tight to the end here? If you don't watch that, you're going to have your stitch pop out. So make sure you're constantly pulling out this yarn and keeping it slack. No tension on there. You will go through quite a bit of yarn. Okay. Just got to the end there. I'm going to turn this over so you can see what's happening on the other side. And there's our fun loops on the other side. And once you've got another row against that, you'll see that it bunches up more for more bulkiness. I was coming this way and I've just turned my frame around to show you the back side. I'm watching where my groove is. I know I have to turn it because I'm going to do one stitch coming in this direction. I'm going to turn it and I'm coming back this way for another row. Again, because this is on the thinner side, it's not a real bulky yarn, I'm going quite close to my other row. And I will finish this row, and when I get to the end, we will see what I'm going to do next. And this is what I was meaning by the bricklaying. I've got one longer stitch here. I've got two sitting above it with the break in the middle, and then I've got this one sitting above the two. That's what we mean by bricklaying. So this is the actual big frothy part that sits on top of the sand. But generally speaking, waves come over the sand. So in here, there's going to be some white interspersed with the sand. So that's what I'm going to do now, is I'm going to come up here and do little lines of a bit of white here and there. And then in between that will be more sand color. So we're going to come up right up in here, and we're going to arch it up. Have a little bit of wave action right up in here. Now I've got to my edge. Now I'm going to turn. Follow my little blue line here a little bit. And then I'm going to come up and make some more wave action in here. And we don't want this to be really straight. We want it to be all over the place because that's what waves do. They're not even. Change direction again. You got the idea? Like so. And if you were to look at, you know, the wave action on a beach, you'd find that there's big patches of white as well. So in some of these areas, I'm going to just turn and come back the other way and make some more patches here of white. And let's say you want to stop and you don't want to do any more white, and you've just come down with your last stitch. What I'm going to do is I'm going to lift this up, and once it gets to the top, carefully hold on. Here's where the yarn is coming at the back. Hold on to that so you don't pull it out. Come in with some scissors, and you're just going to cut it off close. And now you can either come back in with those little pointed scissors and push it in with that if you've got something like that, or you can use a dull end needle and just push it back in through the other side. And that finishes that off. Now you've still got it thread, and you're welcome to go back and fill in anything else. Now, I'm going to show you something here because it's bugging. You see that one loop right there? It's higher. It didn't really get punched down properly. And if that happens to you, that's okay. What you can do is you just take this out, go back to where that wasn't so good. And there it is there. So, and then just bring your yarn back up where it's right at the base of your needle and start again and get that fixed. And then it won't bug you anymore, because it's all fixed. And now for the sand, I'm going to use the Red Heart Super Saver, and this is the Aran Fleck. And I thought it would be kind of fun, and I'm really hoping that some of these black and browns will show up and look like little rocks and pebbles on the beach. That's my hope. Now I want this to be flatter, So instead of going in with the 8, I could come in with my number 10 Oxford. But just to change it up, I'm going to also show you how this works, and I will use the adjustable one that we got in the kit. So I'm using my first setting, and we'll start our beach. And you will need your threader that came with the kit, and you're just going to use the point to come into the hole at the top of the needle here. Let it slide down to the end, out the end, and then you're going to pop in your yarn on the other side here, and then pull it through to the top. And the last thing to do, of course, again, is you can use your threader. If you can't manage to pull it through with your fingers, you can go like this with your fingers, but I should show you. If you've got a really thick yarn and it's all frayed, then you might not be able to get it through. So you can always go through with your yarn threader if you want to make things a lot easier. And let that come through. Either way. Okay, let's start the beach. This is just a mistake that I drew in, and this is washable, so this will come out. Now, again, same as before, we don't have the same guide. It doesn't sit in the same place, so you don't want to follow this time. It's easy to follow this on the Oxford, and you always know you're going in that direction. This time, you're going to have to just watch the opening of your needle and make sure the opening is coming forward. Okay, so down to our starting point again, and away you go. Same thing as before. Now this time, I don't know if you can hear it, but see, I can hear it. It sounds like it's almost breaking the threads. That is the difference between an Oxford and a cheaper punch. So, can you hear that? I'm sure you probably can. But it does work. It just doesn't sound as smooth to work with. Now when you get into a little section like this, instead of jumping all the way over and starting here, we're going to finish up this little section in here. So I've come back this way, and now I need to turn and come up this other way, making sure that you're facing the right way with your needle punch. I'm turning, and then I'm going to fill in this little section here. And a turn, and I just need to fill in this little bit here. And I'll leave this section to come through all in here. So I need to stop this. Again, pulling it up, holding on to that piece of yarn, cutting it off, and poking it down. And then we'll just have to come over here, start here, and work my way this way now. So now I'm coming back this way, and we'll start right here. And we'll just come back and get it in there. And when they're longer like that, I find it's actually easier to use a sharp pair of scissors. Like the end, you can open it up like that and then punch it down, and that's a lot faster than using the needle when it's a longer piece. So just go up and back and back and back and forth. And I find instead of using my right hand, I can come around this way and still angle this way if you are left or right-handed, so you don't have to keep moving your frame. It does work. So it's not so bad. Then you can keep going. You don't have to keep moving the position of your frame. You can just keep punching. Now remember how I was talking about using the wash out pens? This is how easily your mistakes can wash out, so you can redo your design if needed. I've just added a little bit of water to a paper towel, and I'm just going to come in here, and just like an eraser, it just takes that blue line right out. That line was kind of bugging me. I think a lot of things bug me by the sounds of it. But I was looking at that for the longest time going, why don't I just get rid of it? So there you go. Now you would have to let this dry in order to use it again, because obviously it's not going to go onto a wet surface. But there you go. That's how easy it washes out. A little bit about composition, about your artwork. Generally speaking, they say it works in thirds. So say you've got your background, then you've got your water, and you've got your foreground. So you should think about it as in thirds. This here was sitting on the high side, and again, like I said, things bug me. So I drew in a new line, and I'm just going to take this one out, and I'll just redraw my hills, and then we'll be back in action. Here's another little thing that's bugging me. With the Oxford, you can tell exactly what direction you're going in. When this is into your cloth, you know exactly where you're going, right? On this one, by the way, you can push these back when you do that. With the adjustable one, you can't tell. When you're down there, you can't tell where you are and which direction you're going. So what I did was I drew on with the permanent pen. It doesn't look real pretty, didn't get real straight lines, but it's good enough. It works. So I'll just show you, in the first position here, it's sitting pointing this way. In the second position, it's now here. Third position, and it's back to this point. So there's my first, second, third, and then it goes back to the other side again. So now I can just look at my marks here, and I know where I'm headed and when my needle is pointing in the right direction. You might be thinking, what's going to prevent all our nice little loops that we formed from falling out? Well, that's the beauty of the monk cloth. When you go into one hole here, you're pushing these warp threads away, and it's making the hole and you're going in. When you come up again and go to do the next stitch, let's say you come over here, now this is going to push these threads back to hold this stitch in. And that's basically how it stays in. So again, it's going to push it back, and it's going to hold those ones in. So it's pretty tight. It stays put. And again, you can just bring that back, and it's all pretty again. And while I'm here, don't think about you're trying to get into each little hole. Don't even think about where the holes are. The punch needle will do the work for you. So let's say we're up here. I'm just like jamming it in, and I'm not even thinking about where it's going. So, and then you're just coming up and you're doing it. I mean, what you're thinking about is just even placement. That's all you have to think about, and the punch needle will do the work for you. Don't think about where's the hole and do I have to get right in there. You don't have to do that. You just punch down, think about your even spacing, and you're set, ready to go. Now I'm going to come in and fill in between my waves with a variegated yarn that's got some, I would say, call it foam green and some light blue and some white. So I'll be coming in and I'll start here and I'll fill in this one section. Then I'll have to stop and I'll fill in this section, stop, and then fill in these. So every time there's a little section, I will fill it in, start and stop until it's all filled in. And starting on my edge here, I'll work quite close to my white, and then just go back and forth until it is all filled in. Again, doing your bricklaying if you can. And again, now that I've got my marker on there, I know exactly which way I'm going with my needle. And you can see how this variegated wool is just adding color, and I don't have to think about it because I tend to be a precise person. So this is perfect for me because then I'm just going in and where it wants to lay color, it's laying color, and I don't have to think about it. So it's perfect for me. And as you can see, I'm getting a little bit of the green color there. And then as I come back, it's going into the white, which is fine because it just builds up the white section again and just leaves a little bit of the foam green, I like to call it. So it's one way you can add shading the easy way by using variegated yarn. And there comes some blue now. And I didn't ask for it, I didn't plan it. It's just going to happen and create my colors all by itself. And if I had tried to plan that, it would have been hard to do that. This is much easier. Just let it happen. And there we have another section done, just like that. Now I've been actually just letting these come up. It's much easier than trying to go down and find the loops. As long as you can get it down right away so you can remember where they are, and then you won't forget. Then you can get them pushed down right away. All right, I'm going to carry on and finish this section. I'm going to come back up in here and just do a little bit more sand color up in here just to make it blend. And there I've added my 2 lines of the sand color, and now I'm coming in just with variegated and no white, and I'll fill in all this section here now. I'm just going to go back and forth and keep going back and forth in here just a little bit more to bring in more of this color, and then I'm going to start coming in with another variegated but in the darker tealy colors, and I'll throw in some solids of this teal as well, possibly. I design as I go, so I don't even know what I'm doing yet. I'm just got something in my head and I'm hoping it will work. And the beauty of this is if I put in some of this and I don't like it, I just take it out and I try something else. If you've done a fair bit of needle punching and you're finding that it's not tight like it was in the beginning, then the beauty of these frames is you can just take off your sides and re-stretch it. Get those out. And just pull it up and stretch it again. And you can come back in with your tacks again if needed. And you're ready to go again. And I'm also going to come in back with my number 8 Oxford and come up into these middle sections and do a few little waves cresting in the ones up in here. So I'll just kind of come anywhere up in here and I'll just go back and forth and do a few little waves. Whoops, I was getting carried away and I forgot to film. Sorry about that. I think we left you as I have this section here done, and I was just putting in some waves, and now I've accented underneath, and that just gives the waves a bit more depth. Here you can see here I've come in with a darker color. I've done a couple extra bands of thicker solid colors to come through. This is the variegated that I've been using. And again, here's a section here where I've brought up, I've tapered it thicker to thinner. And then I'll just fill in these areas as well. I just wanted to show you how I'm working here. I've got a couple supports underneath to lift the top end, and this is sitting on my table. I get to rest my arm on here so it's nice and comfortable, and then I can just work away, and it's really quite comfortable for me that way. And then your needle isn't hitting into the table below as well. I've also added some rays of sunshine coming onto the water, and this is going to be the same color as the sun. So I've added that in, and then I'll fill in with the water in between. If it doesn't work, I can easily take it out. That's the beauty of punch needle. You can fix it and change it up. And there we have our water finished. And being that the sun is sitting here, it tends to reflect some lighter hues in the water. So I chose to add some lighter blues and some white. And of course, I've got my little bit of yellow in here that will come from the reflection of the sun. And then a little bit of the darker color up into more of the horizon in here. So hopefully that will look good on the other side when we get it all finished. And now I'm going to start my hills and mountains. I'll be starting with the darker gray, medium gray, and a light gray. And I've added a little bit of gold up in here just so the sun is reflecting a little bit of hue onto the mountains and the hills as well. And this is what the back side is looking like at this point in time. When we finish this whole project, we will be coming in here and we're doing a lot of cleanup in the back, and we'll show you that when I get to that stage. And you can see all the cut ends that have been pulled through the other end, and that's what we're going to clean up later on. And I will be writing the names and the color if you choose to use the same colors or you really like the colors. So I will write that in the description box below. I'll give you what I have with the labels, but I do have some older yarn, so I can't give you that. It's just a light gray, so use any light gray that you have if you want to follow the same kind of color scheme that I've got going on here. And starting with my darkest gray over to my edge here, and away we go again. And I have been using my Oxford number 10. So that's what I'm using for most of this project now, because I do prefer the comfort of this rather than the adjustable one that I was using in the beginning. So my design here goes all the way through, and then I'm going to come back again. And you can see here we've created some depth. We've got the darker gray, next medium gray, and the light gray, and that just gives it more depth to the picture. And you could go on forever. You could put little lines in here in the hills and make it look like there's more sides of the mountain, and you could just go on forever. And right now I'm just starting my sun, and I'm choosing this time, instead of going back and forth, I'm going to go around in a circle. So I'll just keep going around, and then once I get closer to the middle, I will just fill in and we'll be all done the sun. And of course you could put shading in here if you wanted. Oh, you can just have so much fun with this. And as I once heard somebody say, this is kind of like doing a painting with yarn, and that's exactly what this is. It's a lot of fun, and I find it's very relaxing and very meditative, so I'm really enjoying this. And now we're ready to do the sky portion, and I've just freehanded in some clouds. And as you've seen, probably looking in the sky, you'll see that there's some darker grays just to give it a little bit more dimension. So I'm going to come in here and fill in these areas here with the darker gray, and then I'm going to come in and put in some lines with the darker gray as well. And then I'll come in and we'll fill in with the white, and then I'll probably come in with a really, really light gray blue and fill in the rest of the sky. And I've drawn in another cloud going off of the painting because I like to do that to make it look like it's realistic, and have just a half a cloud on the right hand side here. And to get these accents in here, I will be having to start and stop a few times here because I don't want it to carry all the way through. So just for this little tiny accent line up here, I'll just go up into the top of the cloud here a little bit, and then I will have to stop, and then I'll be starting again to add more accent lines. And this one here, I'll probably maybe start up about here. This part in here, I'm going to do all this color of gray. So I'll just start here, and then I'll just keep going back and forth. Now you can choose to go around in a circle if you prefer, but I'm just changing the direction of the cloud, changing the direction again, going down and then up again. And of course, as you know, clouds aren't straight, so we need to change it up. Here's my corner, I'm turning, I'm going to do one straight up, turning, and I'm going to come back in again. And now I'm back to my start, turning, and I will just keep filling this section in now. And I'll do the same here that I did here for a line and a line, and this will be solid gray in here. So I'll do this section here. Now that I'm right here on this cloud, I'm going to sneak up and do one of these little accent lines. And I'll start here, fill in, and fill in this. Then I might have to stop, fill in this, stop, and then fill in this. All right, so let's continue on here, and I think you get the idea. Don't want to bore you to tears here with every last punch. And around I'm going, following my outline here. And I'm working a little tiny bit harder here actually, because I should take this off, re-stretch, because it's not tight like a drum anymore. I'm going to see if I can get by with not doing that, but if it's fighting me, then I will take this off again and re-pull this to make it a bit tighter. And there's my clouds are all in, and I'm going to come in with my light blue, kind of gray blue color. And sometimes you'll see that the horizon of a sky is on a lighter blue and then it goes into a darker blue. But I'm going to see what it looks like, and I might be able to just go through with this whole color because I don't really have a color that I like that I can get up onto the top here without having to go into these tealy colors. So we'll just start down here, and as usual, I'm just going to go all the way along and then come back again and fill it all in. So I'll just follow my mountain lines here. And here you go. Here's the finished landscape with the beach scene. So I'm just going to show you, just to help you out for as far as how much yarn you need to do such a project. This piece is measuring approximately 17.5 by about 4 inches, or that would be approximately 45 centimeters. by about 10 centimeters. So this is how much I use out of this ball of yarn. So I'm going to approximate about half, but we also put in some clouds. So I probably used about a third of this ball of yarn. And this originally was 354 yards at 324 meters. So just to give you a rough idea. So again, as we've stated before in the videos, is that this is actually the wrong side. But everybody likes the look of this because it's so nice and clean. Now, nobody's saying that you can't frame it or use this side, but the true side is on the other side because basically this whole process is meant to make rugs, and that's what it's supposed to be. This would look like a back side of a rug, and the front side would have the loops. And I flipped it over, and this is actually the true side with all the loops. And there's some cleanup to be done here now. And what I like to do is I just come through with my fingers and almost like rake it with my fingers. And that will lift up any little loops that are looking like it's a loop, but it's actually one of the ends like this that hasn't come all the way through. So I'll go through, and like you can see up in here, maybe I'll zoom in here for you. Like here where I'm raking through with my hands, and you can see that loop there. Now it's popped up. That was actually an end. So there will be ones. Here's another one here. Actually, that one isn't. That was one that I didn't do a good job on the way I was doing it. So in that case, that's a loop that's not coming up. That's okay. You can just come in with your scissors and cut it level with the other loops to keep it clean. And here for my wave section, do you remember if you were watching earlier on in the video, I purposely made these a longer loop because I wanted it to have the effect that they were actually waves that were coming over the water. So on this particular process, this is called tufting, where I'm going to come in to each top of this loop and cut right on the top, like so, and just cut them all. And sometimes get 3 at once. So I'm going to carry on, and I'm going to go through and do all the tufting on the tops of my waves. I'm also going to come in and I'm going to cut off all the long pieces like this is an end and cut it at the same length as the rest of my work. So I'll be going around and doing all this cleanup as well on all of the areas in all the colors, and clean it all up, and then I will get back to you and you can see what we've got for the next stage. So I want my waves to look a little bit more foamy. So this is what I've done. I've taken my scissors and I'm just breaking up and opening up the strands. So instead of them being 4-ply, they're all opened up into individual strands of yarn. And I'll just go through like this. You could also use a hair comb if you want. You can try that as well. Brushing it both different ways to get them opened up. But I find that the pointed scissors gets down to the base of it a bit better. And then if it, some of them come in a bit longer, that's even better because it looks more natural with the wave and the froth. And so this is what it looks like after we've gone and we've clipped all the loose ends and we've taken down any large loops. The next thing is you need to define your lines a little bit better. So let's go in and we will define our lines. Let's say we'll go up into the clouds and we'll show you that with a close-up. So you'll find that the loops have a mind of their own, and you can see where this gray one is up, this one's coming down. So you just need to kind of poke it around and just redefine your lines and bring your gray line back so it's a more definite line. And the same with around your outline here. Just pushing the white back into the cloud, bringing the blue down to define the skyline a bit better, and just continue to go around in your other areas and just define it a bit better if you feel like you need to. And if you've got some longer loops, don't worry about it. If you have to cut some off to make them the same length and it's bugging you, that one's a bit taller, then cut it off. Don't worry, those loops are not going anywhere. They will not come out. So feel free to cut if you need to. And here it is. It's all cleaned up. We've taken off all our ends, and I've defined a few more lines. And we've got our little surf waves that I've made nice and fluffy. And this is the right side. And this is actually the wrong side. I know, I kind of almost like this better. But to be traditional, you would use this side. So now I'm going to just take it off this frame. Remove all your tacks. And then take it off the nail tacks. And so here it is off the frame. And you can see where the monk cloth has been stretched from being on the nails. So you can come in with your punch needle and just pull all these back into place if you so want to do that. That is totally doable. And you can clean that up. Now you're saying, what are you going to do with this now? Well, you've got some options. If you did want to make a pillow out of this, then what I would do, I would flip this over, and then on the back side, if you want to, you don't have to because these are in there nice and tight, I would take a fusible interfacing, and you can tell it's fusible by the little tiny rough bumps on the other side, and you can place that over and then grab a scrap piece of fabric. You'll want to use a hot steam iron. I'm actually not doing it right now because I'm not going to actually do this process, but I'm just showing you. And then you just want to come down and just really hold this on until it adheres to the back, until it's sticking to the back. That will just help to give it a little bit more security if you want to make a pillow out of it, because then you might want to be washing it. And then once that has adhered, then you would just use your line here to sew on your backing, and you'll have a nice straight line to sew and make a pillow. I'm not going to show that in the video, otherwise we'd have a really, really long video. Option number 2, if you want to hang it just like this, then you could come in, you bring all your ends in. I would clip these down to about here, and then on your corners, then just, I don't want to clip this for now. I can't show you because I might want to frame this. And then I would just clip into the corner here, fold it in, and then once it's all nicely folded in, you could even come in with an iron and press it in so it's really nicely folded in, and then come in with a piece of felt that's exactly the same size as your backing, and then attach your felt to the back side, and then you would go and you would hand stitch it all on the back. That's option 2. Option 3 would be to find a frame of your choice. This one is too big for this project, but just showing you what you can do. And then you would come in and have it stretched so your art is right inside the frame. And of course you'd have to have the perfect size frame. And then you'd come in and you would staple, pull and staple, like here and then on the other side, and then here and then the other side, until it's all nicely pulled. Now, I'm not a professional framer, so I would probably take this to a frame shop and get them to frame it for me, because I don't have the perfect size frame, and I'm not, like I said, I'm not a professional framer. But that's option number 3. Just as an example, you'd have that all nicely pulled, and then that would be sitting inside your frame. And of course, you could paint your frame, you could do whatever you want. That is option number 3 for what to do with this after you have got it all nicely punch needled. So there you go.